Start with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. Appreciate our friends from Frederick coming down for the joint meeting to start off. So it would be, is it the 113 or 133 for us?
Yes.
So on the county side, it's going to be first reading of ordinance number 133. It's a rezone. Has everybody had a chance to look at that?
Yep.
So we'll do the county portion first. I'd entertain a motion to approve the first reading.
So move. Second.
Motion by Fikert, seconded by Sutton. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed nay. I'll let you guys take care of your side. Have you heard anything on this up your way? Or
Do what?
have you guys heard any input either way up your way on this?
No, we haven't. We were at the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I guess we were in favor of it, so we have no problems with the rezoning. I guess I'll entertain a motion to approve the ordinance for the rezoning. Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries.
So that was Gary and Troy? Gary?
Troy and then Gary.
Moved by
Made the
Troy.
motion. Yep.
Okay.
Well, thank you guys. We appreciate you making the trek. We'll see you soon.
See them next week.
Yeah.
A little nicer getting around today than the other day.
Thank you.
Take care.
Should have had a break. You missed the last one. Sioux Falls got it.
Yeah. More coming.
Thank
See you later.
Have a good
Thank
day.
you guys.
Thanks.
I'll hand them out again next week.
I got a dental appointment.
Oh, I've got it here somewhere.
I'll do that later.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
You want to keep yours or?
I'll be there for a while.
Okay. If I find it in the
There's
file,
another
somewhere,
one in there
I'll-
too for the communications is under there.
Okay, and that'll give us a couple extra minutes if you want to do a couple
Okay.
items, Max.
Minutes from February 12th.
Move. Second.
Motion from Sutton, seconded by Weiss. Any discussion or corrections? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed nay. Motion carries.
Claims and payroll.
Move. Second.
Moved by Weiss, seconded by Fikert. Any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed nay. Motion carries.
HR report.
Move. Second.
Moved by Sutton, seconded by Weiss. Any questions on that HR report? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed nay. Motion carries.
Lease agreements.
I think there were
Two of them.
Move.
Moved by Sutton,
Second.
seconded by Weiss. Any questions on those agreements? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed nay. Motion carries.
The landfill credit distribution report.
Did everybody get the chance to take a peek at that?
Yep. I'll move it.
Moved by Sutton,
Second.
seconded by Fikert. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed nay. Motion carries.
Approve and authorize the chair sign the LIIP grant extension. This is for the turning lanes for the soybean plant.
So move.
Moved by Fikert, seconded by Weiss. Any questions on that agreement? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed nay. Motion carries.
The 2018 financial report documents, excluding the option for the MD&A report. I have all of the reports. That's the one I put in the packet is just the one that is published, but I have all the subsidiary reports if anybody wishes to go through them.
I'll move it.
Moved by Sutton, seconded by Weiss. Any questions on that report? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed nay. Motion carries. That brings us to 8:50. Let's go to our next item. We got Bill Edwards to discuss the land swap. Appreciate you joining us this morning. How are you?
I'm doing well, Rich. Thank you.
I just thought Dwayne and I have been, talking back and forth, so I thought I would just, we thought it was time to kind of update the commission and see what, there's a couple things that I do know, a couple things that I'm not sure of, and so that's why I'd like to bring you up to date. We talked with some accountants, attorneys, talked with Robert Teachout, who is with GF&P out there, and trying to figure out some things. And like most things in our world today, it ends up being a little more complicated than it seems like it ought to be. But essentially, what we do know is this. I'm committed to the principle of the county fair having the 40 acres adjacent to the current fairgrounds, and for the swap for the land at Richmond. And I'm committed to the concept of that being permanently and perpetually utilized for public use. Now, I've thought that through carefully, and I'm comfortable with that. Now, is the commission on board with that? I mean, that's what your objective is you want that parcel of ground, and the people of Brown County, I think, want that ground to be perpetually and permanently public use. Correct. There's two things I'm not 100% certain on. And the first of which is, what does that mean perpetually for the use of the public? It could be anywhere from that property is to remain exactly as it is forever, or it could be something in between where, let's say, the county feels like we need a campsite, another campground, or a sledding hill, or on the screen up there, in Sioux Falls and Rapid City, both of those towns have what they call an outdoor campus. And the purpose of that is to expose our youth and anyone interested in the outdoors to activities in the outdoors. And is that something that at some point in time, we don't know 10, 20, 50 years from now, what beneficial use that property might afford Brown County and the region. So I'm a little hesitant to put a blanket restriction on what would forever happen to that property. One of the things that I thought of is that there is some sort of a committee that would oversee that. For example, a 3-member committee with someone appointed by this commission or one of the commissioners, a member of like the Richmond Lake Homeowners Association input, and then perhaps, someone from my family that would be involved in trying to figure out what might be best use for that property as the future moves along. So, not restricting it too much, but with the certainty that it is perpetually public use. So that's one thing that I haven't figured out entirely. The second thing I haven't figured out is actually where the ownership should ultimately fall. Now, we've talked about the county or the state owning it. In my discussions, other things have been brought up. For example, charities that might be able to enhance it in and of themselves, say Pheasants Forever or Nature Conservancy, or a charitable foundation. There's various ways it can be held. What I wanted to find out from you folks is, is there any particular restrictions that you see? And I realize you don't have all the facts yet. I don't have all the facts yet. And Chris, obviously I'm glad you're here so that we can determine something, try to find out a direction that makes this work today and far into the future. So, I guess those two things, not being overly restrictive as to what can happen to that property, while still maintaining permanent and perpetual public use of it, and then where the ownership actually falls, and how that looks and how that works.
Sure. Well, I appreciate your comments on, coming from the ag world, as you're well familiar too, the idea of not tying our hands down the road. I mean, I don't know how many farmers sell off easements and do things with their land, and 20, 30 years later, they're like, oh, it could mean the difference between still farming and not farming. So I think that's very wise to think in that manner. I don't know what the answer is right now, but I am in total agreement with that we don't want to, tie our hands so much that we can't use it for something we might want to in 15, 20 years. So. Any other thoughts from the commissioners?
Well, even in those perpetual easements, I mean, there's certain written-in restrictions and things. I guess I'm not sure reason why there couldn't be something written in that things that would be allowed. I mean, and for the most part, I mean, you can go to, like on a grass easement, you can go to U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and you can get get some changes if you want to bury a water line or you want to plant trees. They'll allow that. I mean, they'll give you permission to do that. There's certain things that they won't allow, like burning or plowing or those kinds of things. So I sure would think that
you could write exceptions into it very easily. You could also make the exceptions to be determined by a board of some sort, like Bill had mentioned. I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue you're going to have to overcome is you currently, in my legal opinion, and no one's told me otherwise, you currently own that property with no restrictions. And if you think it's more valuable than the property by the fairgrounds, you're going to have to make the decision if it's worth trading it. Because I think, at least from what we've done on our research in Roberta's office, and no one's said otherwise, you have a very valuable piece of property with no restrictions on it. Probably be a different ballgame if there was restrictions on it, but I don't think there are.
And while we had, 40, 50 Richmond Lake folks here telling us their opinion, which is a good, I understand where they're coming from. What does the general public in Brown County think? Would they like to see?
You probably have another 30,000 people that would like to see you keep a valuable piece of property. That'd be my guess, but who knows?
Sure.
And actually, I like Bill's idea, and I think you can, I think it's unlimited what can be done out there. I think there needs to be something. First of all, a lot of people don't realize that's public property. Encouraging people to use that property, and we just talked about when we did have one of our meetings, some of the things that we do projects around the lake. When I look at a piece of property, the first things I'd like to see done for us anyway is actually planting trees out there. I've seen what trees do, when I look at the youth camp. The trail system, I think that the Boys and Girl Scouts put in is a great start. But I think that piece of property could be used a lot more aggressively. I like Bill's idea, even with the use of game fish and parks, Nation Conservancy. We do a lot of work with them. Personally, we sell them a lot of materials. I've been up and seen what they've done up by Leola. That's a great organization. They've got a lot of great ideas. They also have a little bit of money too. I think I like his idea of maybe a committee trying to figure out, kick some ideas around. What do you guys do at the youth camp? Is there kind of a committee that oversees the youth camp and
Just the commission.
Just the commission, okay.
It's managed through the fair.
And I look at, well, it's no different than the fair board. They come up with a lot of great ideas to make it a lot better. And it's the same thing out there. We already have something in place, the association, and it's very active right now. A lot of support. Working with somebody, we meet during the summertime we meet quite a bit. During the wintertime we don't meet that often, but I think we would love to be part of something, because we're always going to be there, just to make sure those things are taking place. Same thing even with, if you guys ever want ideas of things to be done that needs to be done over at the youth camp. We worked with the state, just brought up a good idea that we're always doing something out there. Projects at the youth camp, to me, is very important too. Just not, we're always looking at the state. You guys have never asked us to partner on a project, and we do quite a few projects. I just started getting involved in the last year, but I do like, because I think you can have some restrictions on that property as long as the intent is there for public use. That's to me, that's the only really restriction. But gosh, I look at, Bill's come up with a couple good ideas. Sure, do I envision someday of a youth center or something out there? That'd be wonderful, as long as it doesn't, really affect the county as far as cost. But I think a lot of that stuff could be done either from homeowners out there, the general public around here, people like Bill. They're always looking for, something could be utilized.
With regards to the ownership, the ultimate ownership, I guess I personally feel that the more local ownership and control you have, the better off you are. Nothing against the Nature Conservancy or Pheasants Forever or whatever, but if you get involved in a national organization like that, I guess I would feel you run the risk of losing any local, potential use or control over that property. So the more local we can keep it, I guess the better I'd feel about it.
And that's the way when we left last time, it sounded like Bill wants to keep that local control, but I think we can have voices of people that are experts on utilization of that property and still maintaining, the county's control of owning that particular piece of property. We don't care. Yeah, and that's, whatever works out for Bill and makes this thing go easy is what we're trying. We're very flexible too. The goal and the original intent was to keep this something that can be utilized by everybody.
Now, when we were at that meeting, and then before that, it's my understanding that we're waiting for some sort of a response from Game Fish and Parks as a potential management, if they've got any thoughts or ideas about what participation they'd be interested in having.
And I have talked with Robert about that, and he is compiling it as we speak.
So not to forestall things, and I appreciate you reiterating that your intentions are still basically the same as what they were, with a few details to be worked out, but not to be, stalling, but I think we're kind of waiting to see what level of participation they officially are interested in offering, as a place to start, because, I agree, I would like to see the county retain ownership and a certain amount of control over that in exchange for potentially, probably some concessions about limiting its future use, but not creating an entire, whole nother department, if you will, almost, to oversee it and work on development and put resources into it. If there are partners, and with the state being in so close a proximity, although it is across, the channel from there, wait and see what kind of response they have, and in their defense, being cautious about taking a position on that, as well as the legislature being in session. They're probably a little more focused on a few other issues at the moment, but I don't think they're ignoring us. They're just being careful about crafting what their position might be with that to get back to us. So not to stall things, but I think,
we just need to be careful in how we proceed, because we want to do it right and have it functional. Speaking to your point, Dwayne, I do like the idea of very local control on it. And the reason I even thought of another entity being involved is maybe what they can bring to the table as far as improving the property. Now, and that may or may not be something we're interested in. But it's something. Now, here's another thought too. And we did this in another situation. where there was a entity established that, a charitable entity that owns the property and has a board that controls the property. Now there you don't have the benefit of Nature Conservancy or Pheasants Forever or what they bring to the table, but it is very close control of what happens to that property. And because the foundation owns it, and there's a board that is established by the parties that is designed to protect that property and carry out what the desires are for that property. Now that I do have firsthand experience with, and that works very well. It is another entity, but you know, with the potential of that property, it may be something that we want to consider. So I don't know the answer to that question. What I did want to find out from you folks is, can we work with a blank slate and figure out what accomplishes what we want to accomplish? And you know, is there any particular restrictions, especially legal restrictions, Chris, that you would want to see done with the property? And
I think the first question that needs to be decided is who's going to own the property. That's the starting point. I don't know if you're going to be interested in having the county take over the 40 acres by the fairgrounds if you don't ultimately get the complete land swap. They're going to have to decide if they're willing to relinquish ownership of the property. That's the number one step, or all of it's a waste of time. And then from there, we can work on what restrictions there's going to be once the commission decides to act.
I think that's a good. I think that's a good point. And to that point, I'm under the impression that the commission is dedicated to the purpose of that being perpetually public use. Now, if
Perpetually public use while the county still owns it, or under your ownership? That's the question they got to...
Unknown. Yeah, and that's... Now...
Well, I think the offer is for the county to retain ownership of it with certain stipulations that there are...
Not necessarily, Mike, and that's kind of what I'm asking.
But I mean, in the interim, you know, if the county agreeably puts it off to another entity or something...
Oh, yeah.
That you think is
well,
okay.
I think and you got to have that all set up. So we
Right.
need to get rid of the initial swap, but we also want to know what's the next step. Then
Right.
the swap goes to where.
Right.
So I think it's all together before we agree to swap
Right.
it. We want to know what the next. And I guess one thing I was curious about when we're talking, are we talking forever, or are we talking like 20, 40, 50 years where we can put a limit on it? Since we don't know what things are going to look like in that amount of time. You know, we have a BMX piece of land that we're lending to somebody. I think it's 20-year agreement we have or something with them. Can we re-look at it, or the next commission that's in the seat still look at it? Or are you saying once you swap, it's a forever thing, it's going to be public use forever?
Maybe I'm not tracking, but you don't get to swap it, and the county loses ownership of it, and then all of a sudden the county gets ownership back in 50 years. It's either you're trading the land and you're putting restrictions on it, or the county's owning the land at Richmond and going to continue ownership. That's what you got to decide.
Right.
Is Bill interested in, first of all, is the county commission interested in getting rid of that land completely out of our ownership, even if we can get restrictions on it for public use, but completely out of the county's ownership? If you are interested in that, then you talk about restrictions from there.
When we left the meeting, when we had everybody in here, what I took away from that meeting was the intent was to do the swap. You would end up with the Richmond property, Brown County would end up with the 40 acres at the fairgrounds, and then you in turn would gift that property to either the county or Game Fish and Parks. That's what I took away from the meeting.
And I think
that was the understanding of almost everybody in here.
Yep, and that was my understanding as well. And then after having thought through these other things and learned a little bit more about what all is involved, then it made sense to consider some of these other alternatives that may function better. But Chris brings up a good point. If we, as a county, are dedicated to the proposition that it is going to be a public use and perpetually public use, and we're all in agreement on that, and we structure it that has the flexibility going into the future, where's and there has to be ownership somewhere. And somewhere has to be the ownership. Where is the best place to govern that property in the future? Is it the county? Is it the foundation? Is it Nature Conservancy? Whatever. And there's a lot of things to consider, I think, other than the pure ownership and the control of it. There's cost of operating it, and something like this, this is under the auspices of Game Fish and Parks. So we want to have the flexibility of offering that to the state, I think, to build something of that nature and offer those sorts of things. What my purpose is, I have really a profound admiration for the land and the beauty of the land, in this land in particular. And I would like to see not only people in the county, but in the region, and especially the youth, make that connection. Quoting Christie, not sitting in front of the Xbox or the iPhone, but out enjoying the nature, and that's what I would like to see come out of this. And that's what I heard from the Homeowners Association. That's what they want this property to be. And that's my objective. I just don't know where the best place of ownership is. And again, back to Chris's point, if that's the best use of the property, and that's what the county wants and the commission wants, then where should the ownership lie? Does it make a difference where the ownership lies?
Well, my only concern, and I appreciate the conversation, but I think at this point, not to stall the process, but to give it its due time. One of the best potential partnerships is with the state. And at this point, the conversation has been started. We're waiting for the state, through Game Fish and Parks, to respond. Before we start making other overtures, I'd like to wait and see what that response is before we start making invitations to other potential partners. If the deal with the state doesn't look like it's something we can come together with, then I think we explore a lot of these things, and I think they're good for conversation. But at this point, I don't want that conversation, for me personally, to go too far until we have the opportunity to see what the state's response is and totally explore that, because I think that is potentially our best avenue with them. And they're taking their time, their due diligence, to carefully consider, I hope, what that response and what their position is going to be. I need to see what that is before we start getting a bunch of other people excited about some potential things that, if this does come to fruition, may frustrate them.
And coming from the business world as opposed to the government side, I was trying to get everything in place simultaneously instead of waiting for one thing, another thing, because we've been working on this for 3 years now. In November of 2017, we thought we basically had this done, and my tenant was moving away. So I didn't rent that property out again because it looked imminent. That was November of 17. Now here we're in February of 2019, and still not done. And I was depending on this board to move it along. Now Dwayne has basically asked for me to structure something that I'm comfortable with. And so I'd like to simultaneously do these things so we can get this moving along. So I would like to, and that's why I'm really here, Mike, is to kind of put that on the table so you can just see and hear what the options that I've come up with so far are like. And nothing is, the only thing that I think is decided is what we want the ultimate outcome to be. Now that goes back to what Chris said. Does the county want to do that? You know, are you dedicated to that principle?
Commissioner Fikert, you wanted to say
Yeah,
something?
well, I guess, you know, when you were here, whenever it was, 3 weeks ago, I was left with the impression that you were going to gift it back to the county.
That was the discussion at that time.
But now what I
Yep.
hear is that you're the possibility of maybe gifting it to someone else. And so I just wondered what has changed? Why am I, what am I hearing? I guess that's
Absolutely,
that's my question.
Yeah, after having talked with people that are expert in the area of things like this, they encouraged us to consider different options.
Is that, Bill, is that because the IRS isn't okay with the land swap and then all of a sudden gives it back?
Or who you gift it to? Can you gift it to a government entity, or does it have to go to a charitable organization?
I don't believe, Chris, that is I don't believe that's an issue. I've not explored that, but I have explored the fact that it can be gifted back to the county, and it is because it's a non-taxable entity, it is a charitable gift. So, and that was the discussion, but we didn't know what the details were. We knew what the concept was, and to me, the overriding concept was public use, not private ownership, not development. Now, if that is an issue, then that's part of the reason we're meeting, is I need to know what parameters I'm working in to try to get a solution that can offer the flexibility that we want and accomplishes that within the parameters of what everybody's expecting out of this to happen.
And when you talk about expectations, I'm thinking that too, because sometimes you get gifted something, for instance, our granary, and for an entity that doesn't have a whole lot of money to make improvements, it becomes a gift, but a gift that keeps on taking. And if this particular piece of land, we're going to put expectations on it for it to be developed, the county is not the right place for that, because we do not have the cash to do that.
You know, and maybe that is so accurate, Rachel, and that's what came up in the discussions. And to answer your question, Dennis, that's part of the reason that these other options were presented, is that how does this happen? You know, the county owns it, but the county doesn't have any money.
I've got maybe a comment too. First of all, I think, Rich, I agree with what you said too, is, you know, I think we need to look at all the processes of these steps. And in the end game, coming from the association, I can speak for the association totally, but from what I got out of the meeting before is, we don't really care what the end looks like, as long as the county gets what they want. I think it's very important, getting the land for the fairgrounds. I think that's the whole key issue here. Do I wish it would happen very quickly? Yeah, because it's affecting us right now. You know, as an association, there are things that, you know, that we do that we need to be making decisions on, because, well, one, for example, we utilize that land. You know, we're looking at right now, we're holding back on our fireworks because we don't know if we don't have a place for fireworks this year, you know, we're probably not going to do it because we don't have any other options, first of all. And it's a very expensive thing. It's $12,000 to $15,000 for us. That's kind of a key issue. You know, when I heard this a few weeks ago, I was hoping that we could get through this, and by this summer, two things happen. The county is utilizing that land the way it's intended to be used, of bills, and everything is hunky-dory out at the lake. we don't have to worry about things, we know where the public, the public use is going to be. I think we can iron out what the future is, even with the county owning it. I think there's definitely things that we can, and I think, for example, at the youth camp, when Tom Almond did the building for the Boys and Girl Scouts, or the Girl Scouts, that was a great partnership. How that's utilized today, and I think, I'm not going to speak, you guys know more than I do, but the upkeep in the general expenses for that is taken care of by, I think, did he set up like a foundation, or is it Boys and Girls? How is that particular piece of property, or that deal, how's that working? How's that work with the county? Does the county have any cost or input of utilizing and taking care of that particular building?
For the youth camp?
No, for the Girl Scouts. The Girl Scout, the building that Tom Almond donated.
I guess I'm not sure on that. Is that the little cabins that are out there?
No, the newest
Girl
building,
Scout
probably
building.
done
I think they call it the Robin's Nest or something.
10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah.
But I think that's taken care of by other than the county.
So I think it can work, so, and that's, something like that, I'm hoping will work. I kind of like the idea of having, some other entity involved in this. So the county does have, not like the granary, for example, is a great example. So you don't have an issue like the granary. And I'm hoping, my hope is we can partner with the game fish parks or the state, at least to start out with, because they're there and they're wonderful to work with. The problem with the state is, as we're all aware of, it's called bureaucracy. It takes time. Why does it take time? I was hoping we'd have an answer about now, so we would have something to go on as either yes or no, that they would be interested. As long as they're interested in saying, like, yes, there's something we can do, we just need to iron that out, we can make this process move on. But in the end, I still think we can go forward. And I use the example of the Girl Scout issue. I think there can be, even if you go through and make some restrictions on that property, but have the county owning it, just to get this process through with the land swap, but have something in the end where Bill's comfortable with it, that goes back to maybe passing it on again to some other entity. And like I do agree with you, Rachel. Things can change over the next period of years, and I will agree with, restrictions are restrictions to a certain extent, but you can get around restrictions. I've done a little bit more research, and you're absolutely right. Let's say if the true public comes forward and said, 20 or 30 years from now that they want a different use for that property, they can do it as long as they've got the vast majority of the people wanting to do it. And whether I like it or not, I think that should be an option. To put a true restriction of never, ever, ever, never is almost impossible. By law, you really can't do it.
Rachel?
Yes.
I know that, Game Fish and Parks, they pretty much answer to a commission, and I'm sure that they're going to be checking with their commission in Pier also as to management. For the most part, Game Fish and Parks doesn't do a lot unless there's something in revenue for them also, even, to access the parks or any of those things. They generally have something tied to it for some type of revenue. Now, what the makeup of Nature Conservancy and their authority, or how they manage their programs, I have no idea. None whatsoever. But I know Game Fish and Parks, I'd be real interested, I guess I'd be amazed if they become involved, or at some time would become involved, that they would be, just give it, just out there managing it, whatever, without some type of revenue coming back to them of some kind. I might be wrong, but I mean, that's...
A lot of parks are that way, though. I mean, there's nominal revenue, but there's no sense speculating.
Yeah.
I'm dealing with Robert on that now, and, you know, just as I think this through, and this is good discussion too, because there's a couple thoughts. The idea of a separate entity, and it might be a good idea for us to find out what Tom Amon did with that other. You know, does the Girl Scouts own that, or is it a separate entity? A separate entity owning that has it'd be a 501c3, a charitable organization, with a set of bylaws that are just designed to both give the flexibility and the ability to upgrade or to, you know, they have to fit those rules of that charitable foundation. That may be an alternative that makes a lot of sense, because the bylaws are set out to accomplish what we want to accomplish. It's got a board that's responsible to meet those legal requirements, and it would have the ability to go where it would need to fund improvements in the future. So, I guess bottom line then is, I'll continue to gather information from GF&P. That's probably an important step.
Well, for me, at this point, that's the most critical one. If they have an interest, they have local personnel who have expressed very sincere interest with, you know, concurrence and leadership from their organizations, which is totally appropriate. I understand the urgency. However, it does take time, sometimes an awful long time. It seems painfully slow how some of this stuff works. But, you know, it is one step at a time. So I think it's good conversation, but until, you know, we have a little more certainty on what the possibilities either are or aren't there, I want to be careful about other people getting excited.
Would not be interested in doing that, because that's such a wonderful opportunity for, you know, the public.
You know, I think it's pretty clear, regardless if it was the previous commission's makeup or this commission's makeup. You know, we got into, you know, the whole thing a number of years ago to clarify the ownership as clear as it is right now, when the city, quote unquote, you know, thought that it had partial ownership of it and was motivated to try and see if they could liquidate that asset. If we were purely interested in just liquidating that asset, it would be up for sale right now. It's not. I think we clearly would like to, if the situation is appropriate and there's a broad brush there, be able to maintain some level of public access for that. That it's something we definitely would like to see happen.
Rachel brought up a good point, and I was thinking about it as well. We know how the people around Richmond feel about it. They feel strongly about it. But what about the rest of the county? You know, what's there? I mean, this is a county decision, and
I think as we start putting the deal together, we'll start hearing from more folks. I mean, as we get closer to closing on this and figuring it out. But I think from what I'm hearing from the commissioners, though, everybody's on board. There's nothing we've heard that would stop it. It's just going to depend on what that final piece looks like.
Let me do this, if this is acceptable to you. I'll continue to gather information from Game Fish and Parks. And then I want some connection with this, as I don't want to go and put a lot of time and effort in this without having some guidance from you folks. Sure. I would like to, because it's going to come down to the legalities, I think, and you're going to follow a lot of what Chris has to say in terms of the technicalities of this structure. I want to have some connection. It seems to me Chris is the logical contact for me as other ideas unfold and we find out what GF&P does, when we find out what can and can't be done in terms of ownership. Does that make sense, Chris?
It does, but I'll be honest, again, I don't think the legalities are really the issue. I mean, this whole restriction, what you want on it, what you don't want on it, that's easy to figure out. That's very simple. The question is going to become who owns it and what entities are going to be involved in, you know, developing it or whatever. Number one question is who owns it. That's the only legality we're really dealing with. The restrictions, shoot, that'll be easy to figure out.
Okay.
Well, and I think Actually, I think this process, whether the state doesn't get back to us in time or not, I do believe that we can go, you guys can keep on going through with this, get this thing done in a timely manner, and the worst case scenario is going to come back to, and Bill will do is get back to the county. Then it just comes basically back to, okay, is the county going to be the one that's going to be managing this? It's going to be this, the partnership with the state, maybe even going on to another party, conservative district, like Bill said, maybe setting up a 401, to help with the improvements out there. So I think that's kind of irrelevant in the case of, as long as Bill can get what he wants out of it, in the end, that's all I really care. And it goes back to what we had talked about 3 weeks ago of the intended use was, which is pretty broad, is for the public use. And of course, I'll be a little bit biased, but Rachel, I think you're right, this is a county issue, but everybody that I've talked to, whether it's people on the lake or even in town, I have not had one person say that what we are trying to accomplish is a bad thing. Everyone's a good thing. I think if you polled public sentiment of the county, it would be overwhelmingly in favor of what we're doing, and what Bill's trying to do out there is gift this back to the public.
And I agree with you, but what if it were posed in such a way that if we were to sell this, we would be able to provide a new grandstand, which we're much in need of, or if we sell this, we would get the jail we've been waiting for how long? I mean, it depends on how you pose the question, how people are going to feel around the county, or you could finally chip seal how many X miles that we've been waiting to chip seal, but I agree with you, and it's just, do we sell or do we not sell the land? I know where people are with that question, but I think when you pose it broader, what we could do with the money is different.
I totally agree with you, and I know you guys got to go into your meeting, but, years ago, prior county commissions and the way things were recorded, you must admit, there were a lot of mistakes made. So when you go back to what the original intent was of that property, numerous times to keep that public, I go back to that. If it didn't say anything, we wouldn't be here right now. We'd be selling that land, and it'd be a done deal. But it still goes back to, and I think, and I was involved, being with the city council, I was involved with public land, and when you start talking public land and original intent, it's amazing, how people sentiment. Same thing there. We looked at making money. We looked at the intent first before we really looked at trying to make money. And it cost us. When we did all of our land swaps, it cost the city hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that.
Yeah.
So, and we had the same issues you guys, like you guys do. We looked at things differently too. So I think at the end, I still think we can do this deal. We can get it done. In the worst case scenario, it's going to come back to the county, and then as long as you can put an exception or a restriction there that Bill has, when he goes back to the county, that he has some say in it, this deal can still go through in a very timely manner.
Sure.
Well, we don't need another granary.
No.
Right.
No, and it could be
It's a great
simple
place,
as
it's just
keeping the way it
a lot of
is,
money.
but I think you're right. I think even if the state comes back to us and says, yep, we have an interest, there's still a lot of things, I just moved out there. I planned to be out there for years, and I hope my kids plan to be out there for years. I have vision too. I'm kind of like you guys. I enjoy working with the public, even though sometimes that came back to bite you. But all in all, I look back at the things that I tried to accomplish was very good things, and I think this is a very good thing. It's just a starting point. And I look at when they dammed that lake, when there was nothing out there, and now every day when I go out there and look what we've done, as this community has done, it's amazing. And it does come back. And Rachel, one of the things that property will do, and in a weird way, as my taxes just went up and my assessment just went up at the lake, it's a great thing. The tax base out at Richmond Lake is incredible. If that didn't exist, think what the county would be at right now. We're talking, it more than makes up for the minute amount of money that we're talking about here of increase in taxes because of what it's just the value of that particular piece of property is done. And it's just going to get worse. If you look at, when you get over to Pickerel Lake and some of those areas over there, $1,000 a foot is cheap. You know, now we're looking at $1,000 a foot out there. That's substantial. 20 years ago, that was $100 a foot. So I think by improving this land in a weird way and keeping the interest out there, all it's going to do is going to increase the value, which increases the tax base, which helps the county, and it does help the county.
Mainly the schools, but the county.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, we appreciate you coming in and giving all the feedback, and thank you for all the work you're doing, Bill.
We just want to stay involved, and we appreciate what everybody's doing. The end game is keeping everybody happy. We want to make sure the county gets what they want, and we want to make sure Bill gets what he wants, and the people get what they want.
Yeah. Sounds good. Well, thank you for your time, and yeah, let's keep coordinating with Chris.
Okay, now Chris says ownership is the primary issue, so...
And by that, Bill, I mean, are you interested at all in not doing the swap and still letting it be for public use? Because that's when, if you're not interested in that, they're going to have to decide if they're willing to swap this piece of land that I say has no restrictions on it, even if it's getting gifted back to them, which I don't know if you can do. It sounds like you've looked into that. But they need to make that decision. Otherwise, this is all futile and it means nothing. So.
Okay, well, I can answer one question there. I do want to do the swap. Because
so they're going to have to decide if that's something they're willing to do.
Yeah. And as long as they get what they want and what's best for the county, because I just have a desire to have, there's great satisfaction that comes from helping others, helping your community, and I really believe that the county should have that 40 acres, and I really believe that that 63 acres out at the lake ought to be for public use. And if the only issue is ownership, then I don't see that as very problematic, simply because it doesn't make that much difference to me. I just want to make sure it's going to work the way we want it to work, and there's flexibility of improving that property out there for wonderful things in the future.
Here's what I would suggest. Stay on the GF&T and wait till they get back to you, and then we come back and we discuss it again like this. Otherwise, I don't know what good it'll do, because they're going to have to decide, are they willing to do a swap? Even if it's gifted back, are they willing to do it that way?
And help me if I'm wrong, not to carry this too far, but your basic reassurance that you'd like in the swap is that there's some reasonable expectation that that property is going to be dedicated for public use.
It's more than a reasonable expectation.
Right.
It's rock solid. That there's no question.
Okay, and I think we're more than willing to have that conversation, but we would just like to know if Game Fish and Parks is willing to be a partner in the management of that going forward or not, in order to make that decision about how we intend to move forward with that.
Yeah, I think that. So you've got your decision to make, which you've already talked about. I will work, and I'll just keep you apprised, and
you can certainly call me, Bill. I don't know if I'm going to be able to help a lot with the legalities, because I don't think there are too many to deal with.
So according to Chris, it's kind of simple. If that's what you want, that's what I want, we do it. It's just the details of it, and Chris says that isn't difficult. So
the biggest question I would have is the IRS okay with the land swap, and then all of a sudden to get back just all for tax purposes? That would be stuff we'd have to talk to the IRS about. That would be the biggest issue in my opinion. The rest of it's drafting up some contracts and potentially some...
Yeah, it sounds like, Phil, you've already checked into that.
Yeah, I don't anticipate an issue with that.
And again, that'd probably be more on your side than our side.
Yeah.
We'd be doing it in the back.
And actually, I talked to ID Bailey when they did our, just very quick question, asked him about that, and he goes, the way I see it, that will work.
Sounds good.
Very good.
Well, thank you guys.
All right, thank you all.
I know it's a lot of work for
Sorry
you,
to
but-
extend this, but it's kind of
No, it's
an
a big deal.
important issue, and it'll be a good thing.
For
Dirk,
sure.
by the way, nice.
Hey, Dirk.
Nice job keeping.
Oh,
the
sorry
roads
about that,
buddy.
buddy.
Nice job keeping the roads clean up by the lake, by the way.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Have a great day, guys.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, Dirk Rogers, Highway Superintendent. Sorry to keep you waiting, Dirk. How's it going?
Great.
Morning. How come Richmond Lake roads are under the system?
That's a different topic, Dennis.
Sure, go ahead, bring that up.
You want to go there?
Do you, Max, do you have the actual form for that agreement?
Let me,
You know what the history is behind it? There was a county commissioner by the name of Morris in his house.
I think I got.
And he was able to get that done back in the
Same.
late 40s, early
I think
50s.
I did.
Yep.
Well, the official action that I needed today is extending our grant for the LIIP 17, which is the turning lane project.
Yeah, I have it. If you've got a clean copy though, then there wouldn't be this on it.
We just need to, they've already said they'll extend the grant, we just need to acknowledge that we want them to extend it, so I would recommend that we do that.
Move. Second.
Nope.
That's
You
when we have,
Oh,
that's when we
we
already
already
had
You
it.
already got the motion for that.
Oh,
we did that, excuse me.
It's already done, yeah.
They were fighting over it.
Little jumpy, guys.
That's all I had on the agenda. There's two more things that came up between Friday and this morning, that's just sort of information for you. One is, and I don't know if anyone else gets these, it's a 30-day notice from another drain tile project in Dickey County. It was sent to me and the guy that runs the refuge as downstream, I don't know, administrators, landowners or something. So this is just for information. It's the same story. I was looking on the legal description. I don't know if our maps have it on there, but it's like right here. And it drains into the Hecla, whatever that WPA deal is up there. So,
Sending more water our way.
I guess, and I don't, we've had some discussions before about that whole drainage project up there.
Could always build a wall.
Yep, make them pay for it. I'm not giving you the original. I'm gonna keep
So
that
these are
back.
informational, there's really nothing we do about it.
It's,
We can,
I basically don't know what to do with it, so I gave it to you guys, to be honest.
You have a digital version of this? So what good would it do?
Yeah, I can email it to you.
That'd be my question.
what's that?
Protest
What
all
good
we
does it,
want.
yeah, what good does it do to object?
Well, then you at least know, you just know about it when somebody asks you.
Good. And then the other thing, well, unless you, I looked at it, it's up in the corner and they're gonna dump more water on it, so I don't know if you...
Only when they have it.
In a summary, there you go.
And that's when it's a problem.
We could show
Otherwise, it's not a problem.
Voice our concern with it, I suppose. Commission assistant could drive to North Dakota and go to the meeting, but they're gonna ask why we're so concerned about it, so much for this ramification there.
We
Well,
have,
you could do it.
we have did that in the past, and usually our HECLA people go up to that meeting also, and they discuss their concerns, but ultimately, seems to still go through Bismarck and gets finalized, and so it hasn't changed a whole lot in the past anyway.
Thank you, but we're gonna do it anyway.
Once it gets across the state line.
Yep.
You think there's drainage issues within a county or a local area, wait till you start dealing with state to state.
Yeah.
You really got a
Yeah.
tangled up mess.
Okay. And, one other little strategic change from the summer, and I just got the email this morning, so I'm not sure what I'm gonna do, is this is not a candidate for that process that we were gonna do here. The same one we did from Warner to Stratford. I was gonna continue that on, but I didn't go through the whole data set, everything to look at mile per mile, but in general, there's too many spots that aren't enough, there's not enough existing structure to do this. Now, just for a reference point, it was $700,000 cheaper to do what we did here with that cold in-place recycle versus what we normally do. So I was hoping that we would be able to utilize some other spots in the county. This one did not work. This one is a good candidate, the one going out to the lake. So the only hiccup that throws us
is that process, I have to have a conversation with the contractor to see what the economic benefit for him is for only moving in to do 4 miles. He's gonna have some kind of threshold. I mean, you can't move all that crap in here and do 1.5 miles and call it a day. So I hope that's not the case, because this is an excellent candidate, and I would like to pair that process with replacing the bridge this summer like we got planned, so. But I gotta go back into this and rethink it. I will not do anything that costs more money, but we may have to stretch some of it out.
What is the bottom one there? I'm not making the connection.
This is Stratford, so Stratford to Fernie on 23.
Okay.
I think you call and bitch at me when you drive your hay hauler on there,
Yes, I
maybe?
do. When are you gonna smooth the damn thing out?
Is there any
What's gonna
other
be the
stretch that we're planning to do the next year that could be bumped up maybe, to add more mileage for that particular process?
I'm gonna ask that question. My expectation is no, because they started working on the engineering. It's quite a bit of analysis, and it's quite a bit of subsurface. So once the ground freezes, you can't go out and
Check
be
it out.
boring, and so we'll have to wait till it thaws out again to have them. This is the next, who's got the big map?
Green's the next
This is
year?
the piece that I'm planning on doing it next year, in 2020, from Stearns' Corner into Hecla. This out here is a minefield, we'll do something else with that, but this is the piece that's the next one I was gonna try the process on.
If it's wet, that could be underwater next year.
Yeah, this part will be.
Yeah.
Well, we just said there's more water coming from
That's
that.
what I mean, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
If it's wet, that'll be underwater.
Good news. So, like I said, I'll come up with something where we're not having to add more money to the budget, but we're not gonna be able to do what I was gonna plan there, so.
And
just
the
to
Hall
let you know.
Bridge, that will be wet?
Yep, that's been a bit of consternation. I'm gonna write down my experience with the Hall Bridge, dating back to 2000 when I first came here, and I'm not quite sure who's gonna get that, but it spans so many different things, and the thing was built in '58, and according to our records, the earliest posting I can find on it is '91, but it was more than just a little posted in '91, so that leads me to believe it was probably initially posted 2 years before that in '89, but I can't prove that, but '91 it was posted. So what is that, 34 years? 34 years it operated properly, giving them the benefit of the doubt. It's been posted since '91 now, so it's been posted for 28 years. And right now is the first time that the bridge funding and their evaluation process have met up to the point that it's eligible to run through a bridge program. So,
28 years.
yeah, so we got 34 good years out of it where it was actually operating the way it was designed to operate. In the last 28 years, while we're waiting for it to qualify for some kind of bridge program, it hasn't served its purpose. So now, a few other side notes. That bridge is being tracked. That one as well as this one, the process is being tracked as kind of trying to do an evaluation where there's some bottlenecks to where the whole process can be sped up, and they're using our bridges to look at that. The whole bridge was over-designed by our consultant, and the state kind of kicked back at them a little bit, and so that's been a little bit of a game of ping pong going on right now. But back to your question, it's supposed to be let in April, provided all the engineers can get their ideas and egos in check, and then we can get our bridge designed. But
Now, you said it was over-designed by our contractor or whatever?
right,
And we hire them, or does the state hire them?
there's a list,
Yep.
and then we hire them.
We choose that one.
Right.
And it's over-designed, so that is what's part of the holdup.
The state doesn't accept that being over-designed. They don't think it needs to be quite at that level.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the same reason we don't build interstates going to Hecla, right? We don't build 2 4-lane highways. I mean, the whole thing with the counties is we all know we're not funded, right? So you're trying to find that sweet spot where your funding can match your service level, and I mean, that's the goal here. And so in that case, the state's opinion, it was built beyond, the required threshold, and was pushing the costs higher than they thought they should be.
So you gotta balance that, but if it had been overbuilt in '58, it might not have been posted.
Well, and that's another
30 years
way of
later.
looking at it. So, but
It is what it is.
Yep, you know, we run into the same problem with the 100-year flood event, which I wish they wouldn't call a 100-year flood event. I wish they call it a Class 1, a Class 2, and a Class 3 event instead of tying years to it, because people get it in their head, and that's not what that's showing you. But old bridges, they go in and they design like this one in 58. They looked at the channel, they used their available technology and hydrology, and they said, this is what you got to put in there. Let's just say it's 120 feet long. So you come to today's world, you apply the standards for what the federal government says will qualify for a bridge, and it's 107 feet long. Well, I guarantee you every guy out there has a tape measure, and he knows damn well exactly if we made the bridge smaller or bigger, and there's guys that know that stuff, and they'll call you and tell you that. Well, now, here I got to explain to him why we're making the bridge shorter, but it's really not going to affect anything. And so that's another situation where, you know, back in the day, you know, you couldn't afford to build WPA bridges now with all that concrete and stuff. Now they don't ever fail, but it's not realistic. So I got on my soapbox way more on that topic than I thought, but
Good to hear it.
sounds like April it'll be done, Dennis, or it'd be let. So,
All right.
all right?
Anything else for Dirk? Anything for us, Dirk?
Nope.
All right, well, thank you.
Oh, yeah, I would like to comment. I saw some things about taking, and Jesus, this isn't a political comment, about civics classes, about people having to take civics classes, okay? Absolutely, for no other reason, so they know who the hell is supposed to take care of the road. Okay, if nothing else, just a class to explain that this is a township road, and the county doesn't take care of this township road. That's different, whole different deal.
So you're all about
So I'm all for the civics class if they explain that there's townships, okay, if that's part of the class.
You can help break the
Pass that on.
Yeah, that could be one of the 10 questions.
There you go.
Yeah.
Now, what's your opinion on industrial hemp?
No, get out of here. Thanks for stopping.
All right, that brings us to the end of the regular agenda. Max, you want to finish your item?
Okay, fair contract?
Move.
Moved by Sutton,
Second.
seconded by Weiss. All in favor of the fair contract?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The Sacred Heart Parish of South Dakota came in and purchased the bare lot over by the church, and there's a quick claim deed in the packet transferring it to them. They paid the full $8,000, and when you hold a tax deed sale and there's no bid received on a particular piece of property, state law allows you to sell it for that amount either within a year or when it's advertised again. So this is the quick claim deed that will finish that project.
And 8 was the minimum bid at that
Yes.
auction? Okay.
Yes.
I'll move it.
Moved by
Second.
Fikert, seconded by Sutton. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
And that's all I have.
Okay, Gary, got any for us?
Just have a request for appointment of authorized agent for SDRS until we have the new HR director in place. If the chair could, if you agree that the chair could sign that, that'd be great.
Looks good.
I'll move to approve the signature.
Okay, moved by Sutton. I'll second it.
What is it?
It's gonna be our...
Authorized agent to send stuff to the SDRS for employees.
Since we don't have an HR person right now, it's authorizing.
Is that
Gary?
closed Friday? No,
Yeah.
is that still, okay.
It closed Friday.
Yes, still. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And then I need an exec for personnel and legal.
Move.
Okay, we got a motion from Sutton,
Second.
second from Weiss. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
I need a 48-second.
Motion carries. Motion Sutton, second Weiss. Legal and personnel. Thank you. No action as a result of exec. And I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Oh, second.
Moved by Weiss, seconded by Fikert. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
That was almost worth coming in here, wasn't it?
Yeah.